Well, almost lunchtime, right? Pretty sure there's a brisket. Am I wrong on that? Okay, I wasn't supposed to say. I wasn't supposed to say anything. Sorry, my fault. Hey, let's pray. Lord, thank you. Yeah, thank you for your mercy. Thank you for your grace, Lord. I just thank you, Lord, that you're faithful. Lord, I thank you that your love is never ending. Lord, I thank you that when you call us to big things and you showed us how to do those things, Lord, as well, Lord. And I pray that I just be obedient, Lord, to you. So, Lord, please use me, speak through me, Lord, as I give my testimony, Lord, and just give you glory, Lord. I just pray that you'd be the one who's lifted up, Lord. So we just bless your name in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Everybody loves to get up and spill their guts, right? That's always the best thing. You know, I don't really talk about these things a lot. My own son doesn't even really know about a lot of these things that I've done or my personal testimony, and that's a little sad to me. But if I'm being honest, I feel a little heavy right now, and I usually pretty happy. But I wrote this whole thing out with the help of my wife, and I was talking, she was writing, and I got to Wednesday night, and I was talking with somebody about my testimony, and the Lord just did some things in it. So I've had 2 days, and so this is going to be a little rough. I'm saying the Lord had something else, I guess, in this for me. Maybe it's for somebody else, but I feel like a little bit like a lamb to slaughter type of a situation. I had things written out, and the Lord wanted to do something else. So I'm going to start off with Scripture, since this is kind of the theme, maybe the story of my life that I have realized I'm not as good as I thought I was. But Galatians 5:16 and 17 says, I say then, walk in the Spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary to one another, so that you do not do the things that you wish. If you're led by the Spirit, you're not under the law. The works of the flesh are evident, right? And I'm going to go through a lot of these stories. But as I look back in the story of my life, I realized that a lot of my life has been between those two choices. I had the flesh, and I had the Spirit. And if I'm being honest, I've chosen the flesh a lot, like a lot. And so here's my basic introduction. My name is Garrett Mattox. I'm 37, still a baby. I was born June 23rd, 1988 in Roseburg, Oregon, and I've went here my entire life. My mom was pregnant when she was going to RCF. I went to Centro de Fe. I love this church, this body. I've seen it, the rise and fall, and I love to see the fellowship here. So, my middle name is Joseph. That was going to be my first name. My dad didn't want me to be called JoJo, like the tater tot. So my name's Garrett and Joseph. Anyways, it's side story. But I was born in wedlock, but conceived out of wedlock. Not going to go too much into all these things. Try to tell just my story. But I was born into a very tumultuous marriage. My parents were very. It was just rough. There wasn't a lot of love in the marriage. This is kind of to set the scene. I was raised in a very abusive household, and physically abusive was a huge thing. Mentally, emotionally, we're definitely there. And this isn't to slander my own dad, but you know, a lot of my life growing up was just scary. I didn't know what day was going to be good, what day was going to be bad. I didn't know if there was going to be dishes broken or you know, bodies hitting the floor. I just never knew. And so life younger was definitely a scary thing for me. And I remember just a lot of anger, I grew up with a lot of anger. I grew up with a lot of fear. There's domestic abuse, multiple. There was just things that I didn't want to see, that I didn't realize was even happening. And I realize now when I look back, again, if I'm going with these two choices, I had choices to make, and out of that, I chose anger a lot for myself. And so I became very angry. I was a very angry child. I was very fearful. And I also chose unforgiveness. And I realized, when I look back at that, I just think there's situations where my dad was intimidating over me or my mother or things like that, or even our family members that were, intimidation and violence kind of seemed to get you what you wanted. If I can overpower a woman or anybody else, I can get my way. And I look back at that, and it's always concerning. And, my view on women, I think, started to shift then. And stuff's so hard to talk about. Nothing was safe for me in my house. Nothing ever felt safe. Growing up, I was a smart kid. I was in tag, which is the most obnoxious title ever. It's called talented and gifted, right? That's the stupidest. How could you give a child that title? Hey, you're talented and gifted. Be in our club. But I enjoyed life. I enjoyed things. So there were good things in life, but a lot of this was just surrounded by so much fighting and just the anger and just a scary place to be. My parents divorced in October, my 6th grade year, and I remember going to my elementary school thinking, man, nobody knows what I'm going through. And I set these things up to say that I felt very alone. Things were hard. But when I look back now, I think that I used a lot of those things to really just choose the flesh and kind of do what I wanted in the meantime, right? I had a hard life. Everybody has a hard life. When I put this on paper, it's not as hard as I thought it was, but things really deeply affected me. And I let them affect me, and I had decisions to make. And I look back at those times through just the abuse and the violence and the fear, and I remember in 6th grade, I was just like begging. I didn't know the Lord quite yet. I was in church, but I wasn't fully committed to the Lord. But I remember thinking, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. So I was making decisions to be happy, but it wasn't necessarily with the Lord. I just wanted to be happy. I wanted things to be lighthearted. And again, I say those things because I feel like I use those circumstances to do what I wanted to do versus what the Lord wanted me to do. I wanted to be happy, but how can you be happy really without the Lord, right? I mean, I can watch all the funny videos I want. I can be comical, and that's cool, and whatever. A lot of those things just cover up in your coping mechanism to all the bad things, right? And you never really get to the root of the issue. And that's where I was at. I was at 6th grade elementary school, just thinking, poor me. I'm so alone. My life's so bad. Not that it wasn't bad. But when I look back at those things, it breaks my heart that I chose the flesh a lot over the Lord even back then. Now, I wasn't too deep yet, but so 7th grade, I went to Joe Lane, and 8th grade I went to Fremont, and during that time, my mom married David, who goes here as well, and that was an interesting time. It was a good time because we were away from my father, but at the same time, it was a lot of transition that I really didn't do well. When I look at all this, I'm saying a lot of things, and I'm probably mumbling a lot, and that's probably how it's going to be. But I needed a safe place to go. I needed people that love me, and David really was that for me in a lot of ways, except I didn't see it back then, right? So a lot of different schools. I started getting in a lot of trouble. I started, between my ADD and just not doing my homework, I was chasing girls. I I was just refusing to do the things I needed to do. I had a lot of in-school suspensions in 8th grade, and ended up having a decision to make that I either go to a Christian school, which is UVC, or I went back and did 8th grade all over again, and that was so embarrassing. That was so embarrassing. I could not face my peers, so I chose to go to UVC. And that, for me, was great. But let me backtrack. About 8th grade is when I was 13 years old, and I found pornographic magazines at my dad's house. They had a lot of them, and man, that was the strangest thing. You know, it was this. I was so fascinated, and it was so exhilarating to find those magazines, but so shameful at the same time. It was a weird combination, right? You're like, oh my gosh, this is wow. But then you have that heavy shame that it sits on you, and you don't really understand why. It's such a mix of emotions, you know, when you're finding those things. And things like, I was masturbating when I was 13 years old, right? That was the thing. Voyeurism crept in. I was looking, whatever I could see, whatever I could find, I was looking through windows. I was looking for situations that I just wanted. I was so sexually active. You know, that time in my life was just very, you're sexually active already, but then to have this stash, I would wait for my dad to leave just to go jump on these magazines. It became an issue for me very quickly, right? As it does. I think that's a common story that a lot of people find these magazines or whatever it is, not on purpose, not like your dad shoving them down your throat, but the enemy seems to have a way to make things available. And again, I had choices to make. And man, my flesh was excited. I had this traumatic childhood. This felt good to me, right? I wanted to be happy anyway. Hey, this felt really good to me, actually. I was excited. Nobody really knew about it, and I was dying inside. I was just absolutely destroyed because of how much I loved this sin. Seeds were definitely planted in that time. So if I jump to high school, I'm not going to give an hour, by the way. There's no way. Ninth grade, I was saved. I was at a camp called Eagle Fern Camp. Dylan Clark was the youth pastor. I remember sitting on the bleachers, and he was giving a message about the Lord, and he was giving an altar call, and I was sitting there, and I was like, I'm saved. Like, I'm saved. And real quick, I realized I really wasn't. And I remember the Lord. I was praying, and I started crying. And it was very emotional. And I remember the Lord not audibly saying, but like to my heart, that He just said, "Come to me, my child." And He said, "Come down here." And of course, He was given the call, "Come down." Come down. And I just felt so compelled and so broken to come down and give my life to the Lord. And everything changed in that moment. For the first time, I understood what grace was. I understood that it didn't have any strings attached to it. It wasn't conditional. It wasn't something that I had to work off. It wasn't something I had to fear. I wasn't scared of the Lord. I wasn't, all these things that I experienced, maybe with my father and the circumstances growing up, that I felt so loved for the first time from a God who loved me and created the universe, but He loved me, and I needed that so desperately in my life. And I really clung to that. I just knew that all my past I could take to the Lord. He was steady and unchanging, that He loved me, despite what could have distorted my view of the Lord, from my earthly father. I just knew that He loved me, and that was a big deal for me, getting saved and realizing somebody does love me. Sad to say. Now, I say all those things; those are negative, right? I'm sure there was a lot of good times. I just don't remember a lot of them. I mean, there's something with trauma. I feel like that when you go through those things, when your mind and your body or physically, whatever, when there's trauma and abuse, I don't remember a lot of the things that were good, right? So if you see my dad, he's not this terrible person. But what I experienced was I don't remember a lot of good things. And for the first time ever, I did. I remembered, oh my gosh, the Lord loves me, right? The Lord has given me grace, and I understood that I couldn't earn it. He just gave it to me. That's still something I carry today. Like, I can't earn that back, right? I can't earn the cross back or everything that I've done. I can't earn it. It was a gift from God. So praise the Lord for that. But I became infatuated with guitar at that time. Everybody was kind of playing guitar, and so I jumped on that bandwagon. And so 14, I became a worship leader. I was at a camp, and I just loved to play worship. That's all I can do, by the way. Like Mike is a musician, right? I'm just like, all I can do is play guitar. That's all I wanted to do is lead worship. That's it. And I'm not even really that great at it, but I love to worship the Lord. So I started that at 14. I started leading worship at my school, UVC. I started leading worship at sometimes other churches, they fill in the blank, and I was like absolutely loving what the Lord was doing, but I was also struggling probably with some pride stuff going on at the same time. I'm 14. I had a rough life. The Lord saved me. Now I'm this. Look at me now. I was high on life a little bit. I didn't realize that until one day I went into the bathroom and I was praying, and I was just like, man, I'm doing pretty good here. And oh man, the pride comes before the fall a lot. And I remember thinking during those moments, just that one moment in the bathroom, I remember thinking like, I wonder what would happen if I fell at this point. I wonder if anybody would care. And I remember just these subtle little lies getting into my life. I was doing the right things. I was absolutely loved the Lord. I loved the Word. I loved worship. I was doing the right things. And all of a sudden I started hearing these little lies about maybe I'm pretty great. Maybe nobody would care if I fell. What if I fell? Would anybody care? And for whatever reason, the enemy just started planting these little seeds in my head of what happens if you fall? Would anybody really care? So I was in high school. My parents were divorced, but they only lived like 2 houses away. And somebody at that time had given me a prophetic word in church from this church that I should live with my dad. And that was a significant turning point for me because I knew the dangers of where I had been. And I also knew the dangers of the sin that was at my dad's house that I hadn't really exposed yet. And I decided to listen to that, and I look at that now, and it says in a multitude of counselors there's wisdom, and I didn't seek the Lord on that. I just was pretty innocent and going, okay, you must know more than me. I'm gonna do whatever you said. You're probably a prophet. I don't know, and so I did it, and man, it was absolutely destructive. There was. Again, me being angry all the time, just this anger and this lust and this pornography it kept following me around. And me and my dad would get into physical altercations. And I remember one time when that was happening, it was like I made a vow in my heart to never hit my dad. That's a stupid, right? Who has to think of that? I never wanted to hit my dad, and so I made like a vow to the Lord that I would never do that. I'm trying to build these things up because these are all going to affect later. I loved youth group. It was so important to me. It's so important to have our young people together worshiping the Lord. It's so important to have those relationships built. I didn't realize that at the time, but man, I absolutely adored. I was on fire for the Lord, and I had people around me that loved the Lord as well. We missed that herd mentality, right? We just we need each other, and I needed that back then. I needed that more than I realized even back then. So that was a big deal. Man, I filtered everything through the Word. Jesus was everything, right? I mean, everything. If I walked somewhere, if I said something, it was a constant filter. There were so many things, everything I filtered through the Lord, nothing mattered. There was no addictions that were overtaking me, except I had this porn thing in my mind often. but I filtered everything through the Lord. That was an incredible time. I still look back at that and be like, man, if I could do that again, even now, I would be, I don't know what the Lord would have in that, but I'm getting back to that even now as I'm walking through just my life now. But I really loved that time in high school when I was saved, leading worship. But again, I had this anger and this pornography thing just always there. So let's fast forward to 12th grade. My senior year, I was class president. Not because I qualified, just because I have a big mouth. And I just, I was popular. I had, whatever. I didn't care about anything. And so doing all the sports, leading worship, doing all these things. But I was also having rebellion issues at home. And I have this theme of just the spirit versus the flesh. It's been a battle since the very beginning for me, and I was just wanting to do what I wanted to do, and I was using my circumstances. This is a hard life, the divorce. This isn't fair, right? How many excuses that we use to do what we want? It's kind of mind blowing. They don't have to be. You don't wake up in the morning and be like, hey, I'm just going to go, I'm going to do some drugs today. I'm going to steal a car. That's not necessarily it. It's just you take the excuses and you put them towards the flesh. And you have choices to make every day. So I was having rebellion issues at home. And I can't remember all the things. I'm sure my mom and stepdad would know more than me, but I was basically just doing whatever I wanted. I started, my attitude was horrible. My authority issues were terrible. I just didn't care what you have to say. If you're older and you're better and you're in charge, I don't care. Right? And I started getting into this. I'm going to do it so much whatever I wanted. It's like when the floodgates open. I call it like shifting gear. I shifted into the. Was not how I put that nicely. The forget it mode, right? I shift into forget you, forget this, and I shift it into gear, and I'm gonna hit all of it, right? And I started doing that more and more. Whether that was pornography or just my attitude, or literally started living and walking in rebellion. And I was still leading worship right at this time, and I just felt my heart getting. Just a little darker, letting things in more, letting things in more because I wanted to feel good. And I look back and I look at my childhood, and there was something in that where I was never going to be hurt again. That was a lie, and I'm recognizing that even as I'm going through my testimony. Like, I never want to be hurt again. There was something in that lie that allowed me to feel like I was free enough to do whatever I want. Man, these lies are everywhere for me. I'm telling you, they're just like, I've got them all. And I've done all the things and I've got all the issues, right? But I look back at these lies and then we all have our own lives. We all have our own excuses of why we do what we want. But this is a battle, right? And I was losing the battle. So I started to rebel. And basically, so about 3 months before I graduated, I was 17. My parents sat me down and basically said, you need to stop rebelling or you need to move out. And I said, see you later. I just, again, these things, decisions, all I had to do is choose the Lord. Choose the Lord, right? Spirit lusts against the flesh. Why wasn't I choosing the Spirit? Right? Because I had these lies in my head. No one cares. Everybody's disappointed in me. My life is terrible. I had these lies that I could not get over. And so I chose the world. I chose to rebel. It was a week before I graduated. I had a best friend, and it was a girl. And I didn't realize this, but I'm pretty sure I'm not pretty sure. I was in love with this girl. She was my best friend. And I didn't realize how much we were best friends and we did everything together. And then all of a sudden she started getting some boyfriends and going off. And I'm like, man, that hurt me. Oh, you hurt me. And so I wrote her this letter But I was so emotionally overtaken and so emotionally ruled. I wrote this letter, and I wrote it about a song. Was listening to a lot of music, secular music back then of the world, and I wrote this letter, and one of the lines was, "When you see me, you'll be on your back again." Right? I don't know how anybody else takes that. What my school took it as is that I was going to kill her. Okay? I was emotionally driven. I was rebelling. I was not, like, nothing was stable. I was just emotionally driven. And to me, I was like, that line meant, like, see ya, like, I'm over you, like, I step over you and move on with my life. I had these lies. They led to this song, and here I am just walking down the enemy's road. And I was expelled. But then they had mercy on me and gave me, because it was 4 days before graduation or something like that, they gave me a suspension for the last 4 days out of mercy. And but they told me not to come to my own graduation. I said, I'm the senior class president. Do you know who I am? Right? Like, you can't tell me that. And man, I regret that. That messed me up for a long time. I think I ended up going forward or something with my brother. I was just like, I have to get away. I have to get out of here. My parents went to my own graduation. I didn't. My dad ended up having a little graduation party for me afterwards. It was just hard. But it was a consequence of my own actions, right? I chose the world. I chose the flesh over the Lord, and I had outbursts of wrath. I had contentiousness, like all the things of the works of the darkness. Really, I was just, they became comfortable. They became comfortable because it's what I wanted to do. So that was high school. I was devastated. Didn't get to go to my graduation. I helped plan the senior trip. Didn't even get to go on that. It wrecked my world for a long time. It wrecked my world so much. And instead of running to the Lord, I ran to the world. And so when I was 18, I got a job, and I working in a sandwich place. Ended up, over time, I was a manager at 18, so unqualified. I just, my managers they were bringing me to their house to do, like, to smoke pot and hand me a beer. I was 18. What is wrong with you guys? Anyways, the world has no limits on age, I guess. The enemy has no limits on age. It doesn't matter. You look at the pornography today, right? The children and stuff. Like, oh my gosh, there's no limit to what sin and the enemy in the world will do. They have no care for you. Here's a beer. Here's some pot. Great. Didn't want pot yet. I wasn't like into that at all. But I liked beer. I was like, oh man, I'm a big man drinking beer. Mike's Hard Lemonade, yeah. Anyways. So I got a job, and I ended up moving in with somebody that drank all the time, right? We could party. It was a party house, and it was fun. It was great at that time. I just thought, this is it. This is great. I can drink whenever I want. I have no limits. Again, this pattern, right? I'm going to drink. I'm not going to listen to the Lord. I can't tell you how many times I've woken up to, like, or not even woken up. Sometimes they just showed up. 7, 8 cops surrounding our house, our apartment complex. Like, what this time? Like, I didn't think we were that crazy. Like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of cops out there, though, and they definitely had our number for a while. That was a lot of regret in that. I ended up, I'm sorry, let me back up real quick. When I moved out, I moved to my brother Nick's house. And my brother Nick, he's an inspector now. He's like one of the most solid people you'll ever meet, and he's so laid back, and I'm so not. And I'd come home drunk a lot and just with friends and stuff. And he then again, just like my parents, my mom and David, they asked me to move out. He asked me to move out as well. And guess what I chose? Not him. I had no problem shifting into this gear, like putting my life on the line for an enemy that just literally wanted to steal, kill, and destroy me, right? I had no problem with that. But I knew the Lord and I loved the Lord. So there's this giant conflict all the time with me. When I was 19, I got my own apartment, and so I started hitting stuff pretty hard. I started doing prescription drugs, opioids, marijuana. Those things all led into methamphetamine. I did a lot of meth, and it's the nastiest stuff in the world. It's interesting how the world, I was around some people too that were like, take me in. Again, the world has no problem taking you in. And they took care of me, and I felt safe, and I could do my drugs. And then on a side note, I had this heart-burning desire that I was going to save them. I laugh at that now because it seems so stupid when I look back. But I was going to save these people, right? Hey, I had this burning desire because I was like, oh, Jesus loved the sinners, and he ate with them, and I was like, man, I'm going to eat with these sinners. I wanted to understand them. I wanted to say, why do you have no friends? Why do you do drugs? It didn't make sense to me, like, why does everybody really hate you? I know what you look like from the outside, and I know you look like a jerk, and you are, and you do things, but why? What's the heart issue, right? I was going to help save these. I'm going to read the gospel. Let's do some meth. We're talking about Jesus. Okay, what the heck? Just foolishness, right? I mean, it's this pattern of foolishness. I was so deceived. I deceived myself. These little lies were just building and building and building and building. I was never a thief. Thank God. I was never really a liar either. I just never was that type of person. But I was around a lot of it. A lot of my friends were going to prison. There were a lot of things that were just, I was doing drug deals. I was doing stashing things in my house, just all the garbage. You live the lifestyle, and at a certain point, darkness wants to know if you're darkness, right? Hey, are you on our team, right? Whose team are you on? I never belonged, though, and I knew that. I never belonged. I was never so fully sold out to the world, but I was never so fully sold out to the Lord either. So I was just constantly lukewarm. And the darkness didn't know who I was, but they knew who I was, but I never fit in, right? I had too much of the Lord in me, but I had too much of the darkness in me to serve the Lord. So I was doing drugs. The place where I was at was pretty scary a lot of times. The people that came through there and things that happened, really nothing to glorify them. But I guess at the end of the day, I wasn't saving anybody, right? I wasn't helping spread the gospel. I was doing drugs with the world and pharmakia, and that opens you up to so much. And it was horrific. And I felt so empty. I felt like so empty. I never felt that. I got away from all the things that I said, I'm my family that loved me, right? Got away from that. My brother who loved me, leading worship that I loved. Like, I'm done with that, man. I chose the world hard for a long time. I was 19 to probably, 24. So had a good run. Cigarettes, all the things. I've done all the things. And it's an absolute waste of time. What an absolute waste of time. I look back at that time and I regret that so much. And, Satan loves to throw regrets in our face. Remember when you did that? I got you. He brings them up all the time to me. And it's just something I still have to fight. It's things that are still tough to fight because the enemy never has a time limit on his condemnation, right? There's no time where he's like, he's all condemned out, so we better leave him alone. Like, it just never stops. And I've given him a lot of ammo here, over the years. I've given him a lot of ammo. So, again, I say those things. I was walking in the flesh pretty good. I ended up getting a full sleeve of tattoos, right? I thought tattoos were the coolest thing in the world. Everything was biblical. So at least I kept it biblical, right? I'm like, yeah, ask me about Jesus, and I'll tell you, and I was, I mock it a little bit now because the older I get, the more I realize how beautiful the body is made, how beautiful the Lord made your body. And again, here I look at my tattoos and I say, this was my expression of what I wanted on the body you gave me, but it's mine. And a lot of times I don't notice my tattoos really anymore, but I regret a lot of them. If I'm being honest, I don't have a pride in them anymore. I regret I took something that was the Lord made so perfect and had to make it mine. I see this pattern. The flesh, the flesh, the flesh, the flesh. I've chosen the flesh. And if I'm being honest, like it was put to me so bluntly, I've spent more time with Satan than I have with Jesus. It hits me now because it's still something I fight with. Okay. I've really been broken about a lot of this lately, and this is more than a testimony for me. It's a confession. This is a repentance. This is I know, sorry, yeah. I feel you feel so alone, when you start talking. Yeah. Not everybody was supposed to show back up today, right? You guys can. I know that I'm a broken sinner, and I know you are too, right? So I understand this is relatable. It's just it's hard to spill your guts and to usually it's like a small group. Okay. So I was 24, pretty sure, and I was sick of it. And the reason I was sick of it, sadly, was there was a friend I had in this drug world that had a girlfriend and blah, blah, blah. And she ended up coming on to me. Doesn't really matter all those details, but I made a mistake sexually, and I thought he was going to kill me. It freaked me out because I knew his mercy for people but I knew also what he could do to somebody if he wanted to, right here in Little Roseburg. And it just really scared me. And so, I got out of that world, and that's where I had to make some huge decisions. I had to cut off all my safety nets, right? There was nothing else. I didn't want any of it. I had to cut it all off. Friends that I cared about that loved me as well, but I was done, and I severed everything. And I left the place I was living. They took care of me. They fed me. They had kids. I watched their kids. So messed up. All these good things mixed with so much darkness, but, I cut it all off. I quit drugs. I was done. And God did a miracle in that, an absolute miracle, but he also used, I felt like, just fear. Like, what's more motivating than fear? How do you really go, that's enough, until you're sitting in a jail cell? Or maybe there's a bullet hole in your chest and you go, I made some bad decisions. Well, duh, right? But fear was such a massive motivating factor for me. When we talk about the fear of the Lord, there's a reverence with that you're God, I'm not, right? You're Alpha Omega, I'm man. There's a fear, there's a reverence fear, but there's also just like this fear of consequences. Like, I messed up and I thought this dude was going to hurt me. And so I was like, I'm out. I actually went to his house and was going to fight him. I was like, I'm just going to go get beat up and get it over with, He wasn't there. Idiot. Had street clothes on. Praise the Lord. That would have hurt. So I came back. So Ephesians, and man, the Lord, I was begging the Lord, you got to give me something here. At that time, and Ephesians 5, 15 through 16 says, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools but wise, redeeming the time because the days are evil." And I had not been doing that. And that sat on me, and it sat on me, and it sat on me. And it changed my life. So the Lord used his fear, and he used the word to go, like, I love you, but I was being so foolish, right? I was just being so foolish, and I was proud of it. I was surviving in this drug world, but I didn't ever belong. And so I rededicated my life. I was about 24. And I started getting involved in high school home fellowship, which is with the Hogans. And I was rough, and I was older than everybody, and it was embarrassing. I had to walk in there and, Jesus, yeah. But I had the hardest time adjusting just to real life. I don't know what it was. I could not do it. Somebody would, hey, how you doing? And I would just start sweating or something. I'm like, I'm bad, right? What do you want me to say here? Like, there's nothing else to say. So I'll just go sit in a corner. So I just had the hardest time even just having a conversation. It was crazy. The things you've been through this whirlwind that you self-inflicted. And you kind of come back and be like, oh, no, I love Jesus now. And they're like, so why do you love Jesus? And you're like, I don't know yet. I do. And I'm here. And it was so hard to try. You're trying to get up. A righteous man gets up, right, 7 times. You just keep getting up. You got to get up. And I was doing that, but I was having a really hard time adjusting. Didn't know what my purpose was. Didn't know if I was allowed to play worship anymore. I didn't know. And they were really graceful with me. The Hogans were just so good to me. I needed that family. Man, Linda she's a wild one. So I was a wild one, and we're like, hey, we're tight. But and Kevin was so gracious to share so many nights just hanging out with him and Linda and the kids, and I adored that time. I needed that time. And at the same time, I got a job landscaping. And which eventually led into logging for me. I'll go into logging a little bit. I could talk logging all day. My wife hates it when I talk about logging. It's like the coolest thing in the world. It's like I'm a man. Shut up. It's just, I'm tough and stuff. For me, work and fellowship was vital. I think that coming back from drugs, coming back from sin is like, it's like the hardest thing in the world because you feel like everybody's doubting you. You feel like everybody's looking at you like you're a fake, right? Like what are you? Like, and at the same time, you don't really even know yet. You're like, I don't know. I don't want to sin anymore, right? There's just that weird transition time of like, okay, I'm done with the world. Lord, please help me. He's giving me these verses. He's giving me encouragement. He set me up in home fellowship. Like just one thing after another, he met me and met me and met me and met me. Oh my gosh, how many thousands of times he met me. And here I am again, taking on my own, like, I don't really know what I'm doing here, right? So it's just a hard time, I guess is what I'm saying. It was hard for me to adjust. And everybody was so gracious. And we need to be that as a body. I hope we are. I hope we are as a body. I hope when someone comes in here, they're like, man, I don't have it all together. And I know that. And I hope we come around them I hope I do that. I usually just sit in the back and be like, I don't really want to talk to anybody. So I just sit there. We need each other. I can't say that enough. You don't know the darkness in somebody right next to you just because you haven't seen it. You don't know if they're going to walk outside and blow the brains out. You just don't know. And like Jeremy was talking about, like, are we pulling these men off the cliff? Do we even care to? Like, I've lost the care to sometimes of like, I don't know, somebody will talk to him, right? Why not you? Anyways, that's a side, whatever. So I got a job logging. Never ran a chainsaw in my life. That was, terribly awesome, I guess. I worked for a little crew out of Camas Valley, and man, they didn't have all the right equipment because they were poor and they were starting, and it was just a shovel, and I was their money man, right? So they hired me. I was landscaping at the time. The church actually got me hooked up with them down there. Hey, we're starting this logging company. It was through one of their elders down there, and well, I moved down there in his house, in his trailer, out a trailer underneath a garage with no heater. Like, oh, I still feel cold when I think about that. But it was miserable, right? But I didn't care. I would do whatever it took. Would do whatever it took, right, to get back to the Lord, to get a job, fellowship, and work. I'm telling you, it's vital when you're coming back. And he gave me a chainsaw, and you're gonna make us money. Well, I had to learn the lengths of the logs. How big to cut one end versus the other. And I had two, my logging tapes, and I'd stick them in, and they drop 16 trees in front of you, and be like, well, there you go. It's like, I don't know, what do you want me to do with that? And I could barely even. I remember one day it was like a week into the job. I'm in my brand new corks. I can't walk. Corks are just a different level in my chaps, and I had cut marks on my chaps, and my boots were all sliced up. And I'm like, I remember looking at the shovel operator, and I was like, I can't hold this anymore. I was just like, this is so heavy. But I learned. I learned quickly, and I feel like the Lord has given me the ability to learn quickly, and I was so thankful for that. So thankful to work, and man, it became really fun. They'd drop the logs, and I'd be like, bop, 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 all the branches and doing the stuff, and they'd flip them over. I'm like, I got it, done. Oh, it was so fun. Still just working my way back to the Lord. What am I supposed to be doing here, Lord? I'm working really hard. I felt really strong and stuff, and it's a good time for me, but I absolutely hated logging at the same time. I hate it. You look outside, it's pouring. You're like, I got to go out in that, and this sucks. Like, there's no shelter. You're supposed to be this man, so that was a hard part for me. I loved going up, you hit the top of the mountain, and I was always thinking, like, this is my office cubicle. I get to see above the clouds. That was amazing, right? So I got to see the wonders of the Lord, what he had made, the beauties of these sunrises in the clouds. And I loved that. But then I had to get out of that stinking crummy and go down the mountain, which I ended up driving and cleaning and spit and chew and the drugs and anyways. So I loved it, but hated it. It was good for me to work, and it was good for me to have fellowship. I ended up working at Huff and Wright after that. And we got like job of the year. It was pretty cool. We set records at Huff and Wright. We did really well. Sense of pride in that, but it's crazy how, like, as men, pride is just nothing to the Lord, right? In fact, it's opposite. And I think it's good to have confidence in things. But man, I could outwork you. I guarantee it. Back then. Like, I loved the challenge of outworking somebody physically. Like, cool. Like, game on. I could do that. It's interesting because the Lord put me in a career that I can't do that anymore. I have to actually know what I'm talking about. So there was no more physical gain necessarily for me in that. But side note, this guitar right here, this Epiphone, it's a beautiful guitar. I still love it. Every time I play it, I'm like, wow. It showed up. It was sitting right here on the stage one day with my name on it from a Secret Santa, which I think is in this room, but I'm not going to say anything. The Lord was doing great things. And I was so happy to be just sitting at his feet. What a sweet place to be, sitting at the Lord's feet, One quick thing. Those magazines I found on my dad's house. One day I got the courage up to throw them away. I'm going to beat sin, right? I'm going to beat sin for my dad. I've never experienced such a confusing thing in my life. I've never seen him be so upset with something I did so right. That was a weird one for me. Those are my magazines. They're collector's items. What's that? And I say that to say, like, I guess that, again, just the pornography and the anger was still there. And I looked back and I said, I tried to fight this, and I'm trying to fight it, and I'm trying to fight it. But the key factor, and I'm trying to fight it, is me. Me. It's all about me. And I'm ashamed to say all that. I have this whole thing written out like, oh, the Lord has done so much. And you know what? I take it back all the time. Me. It's all about me. And I hate that. Okay, so car showed up, got saved, looking for a woman. And I met my wife here, and she was and still is completely out of my league. She grew up here in RCF. It was one of those things where I just didn't ever think I was deserving of marriage. I didn't ever think I would get married. I didn't have kids. I wanted those things, but I just didn't think I was. I knew who I was, and I knew I probably wouldn't do well. So that was a miracle to meet her and to have somebody go, I like you, and then marry me. Anyways, that was it was an incredible time. It was very exhilarating, but I was still messed up, and I carried pornography into my marriage, and I thought I had it beat. Had a lot of victories, but man, I would always pick that back up. I would always pick it back up. And sometimes I wouldn't think about it, and a lot of times I wouldn't even tell her. Just me and the Lord, working out this sin. But it was ongoing. I was practicing it, and it was definitely a downfall. The anger was leading to not being able to handle my emotions, which would lead to pornography. It'd be one thing after another. Pornography isn't this thing where it's like. I guess it's natural because we're sexual beings, but we're not naturally just like, I love the Lord, but I love porn. Like it was such a conflicting thing, but I carried that into marriage, and I didn't tell her about it, and it came up, and that really devastated our marriage. It still has effects. Got married April 22nd, 2017, and I became an instant father. That was a huge thing. I met Kellen when he was 6, and he wanted to call me dad right away. I had that honor. I shouldn't have, but once we really started dating, he wanted to call me dad, and that was a big deal. I wouldn't let him call me dad until we were actually married. So, we were married. Said April 22nd, 2017. Then we ended up having Israel, my 7-year-old now. We had him February 21st, 2018. It was like married, pregnant, right? Boom, boom. But during the pregnancy and being the married, we all have baggage. I brought mine. There was some from her previous marriage that was very intense. We had court battles. We were fighting for Kellen's life. I didn't know if I was going to have to shoot a man, if I'm being honest. It was intense. I'm like, I'm too young for this. I didn't have enough tools in my bag. I'm already messed up. I came back to the Lord. It's miraculous. And here I am entering this thing. I'm like, I thought the Lord was going to meet me and be bigger and all these things. And I really did. I trusted that, Lord. I believe you can do anything. And again, he was still working, but I wasn't necessarily listening. So the first year was insanely pregnant. It's insanely pregnant. Yeah, I guess it was. That was insanely difficult because she was pregnant. Like I said, she was pregnant, and we were going to court. Like, who has to go to court when they're pregnant to fight their whatever? When she had Israel, um, there's a lot of things that happened. She had to have a C-section based off kidney stones, and during the pregnancy, she developed pulmonary embolisms. And I don't know if you know what that is, but it's basically you should be dead. No doubt about it. Her pulmonary embolisms are what's the term? Anybody medical? What's the term? That's the term. But like, what is it? You're basically the blood clots. There it is. Wow, blood clots in your lungs all over. You go through your heart, and any one blood clot right can kill you or give you a stroke. It was very intense. I'm 26 now, 27. I don't know what I'm doing. This is crazy. I got married. I'm having to go to court, defend this chaotic situation. My wife gets pregnant. Wonderful. We have Israel, and she almost dies. Like, this is as if my life wasn't a roller coaster before. Here I am on this ride again. I'm just ooh. So, man, the Lord is faithful. I was begging the Lord. I don't know what to do here, Lord. I need your help. I had a list of medicines. Long story short, she has to be on blood thinners now for life. She cannot get away from that. Their blood clots don't just go away. It's something that over time can dissolve, but it's literally like a friction thing, right? If you have something in water for so long, it eventually goes away, right? Blood clots are. I can't drive too fast on the freeway at this point. Like she could bleed out. And I had a list of medicines where I had to pick these medicines, and I was just begging the Lord for wisdom. I was begging the Lord. I don't know what these are. I don't know the side effects of these. I have never studied anything like this in my life. I have a child that I'm trying to take care of while my wife could be dead. What do you want me to do here? Right? It was insane. It was insane. And she has to be on blood thinners for life. I finally picked one, Eliquis, which is one of those ones. There's two kinds of, I guess, medicines. One, and this doesn't matter really. It's just interesting. Coumadin's like rat poison, right? It thins your blood. That's, everybody knows that's how rats die. They don't actually just they bleed them out internally because their blood gets so thin, they bleed out or whatever. And I don't know all the science, but the blood thinners will thin you. But if you eat things like vitamin K, which is like kale or like bone marrow or things like that, your levels get all weird, and you have to go in and you have to get shots every month, and it's like ridiculous. Or they have these new modern medicines, like Eliquis, that they're on a 12-hour scale though. If she takes whatever the 12 hours and we get in a car wreck, the only way she'll live is to get like transfusions, right? Okay, none of this matters. It's just something I have to live with. But I guess I say all that to say, I took all these things and I made them excuses. I did it in my childhood. And here I was doing it again. And I didn't, again, this isn't on purpose either. I wasn't purposely trying to make these excuses. I wasn't purposely trying to say, my life's bad, I'll do what I want. But it was a hard time and it was scary, and something broke in me over those couple years. We had child investigators in our house seeing if we were fittable parents. It's just things you don't talk about, things you just try to go through them. And I was bleeding all over certain people, and it was just a hard time, and something broke in me, and I started using those as excuses to just do whatever I want. And you know what? I started resenting my wife. I started resenting the circumstances that I was in. I started being angry with my wife. I did all the things. And I'm still working through a lot of these things. Here I am again, spending and listening to an enemy who wants to do nothing but steal, kill, and destroy me. Not even on purpose, really. I was trying to seek the Lord, and I tried for years to seek the Lord and do my best. And one day I feel like I just gave up. I gave up. And this is where it gets hard for me because I feel like I've been disengaged for years, if I'm being honest. I'd say like 6 years of my marriage I haven't been engaging. How do you do that? You just kind of exist and go, you're not going to hurt me anymore. And I'll be as angry as I want. Wow. Maybe a little porn, maybe a little flesh, maybe a little bit of this, maybe a little bit of drinking, man, I look back and I this is my confession and repentance right here. I thought I had this testimony thing figured out, and the Lord went, "You're messed up. You're off here." How long have I been in this church? Does it matter? I've still got some heart work to do. Not necessarily on purpose. I didn't even realize all these things. But the Lord showed me like very recently. Okay, let me jump into the pornography issue. And I kept letting it in. And I would get mad or go drink or whatever, and I'd just watch porn. Just to, I do what I want. And came to the point where I always confess too, it was terrible. I would watch porn and get in bed with my wife. I'm like, what is wrong with me? And I would have to confess, and I would confess to her, and it would just be devastating, and it's biblical grounds to leave me, I understand, and I was just hold on for what came next, and I felt so horrible. I brought so much pain into our marriage, and eventually it came to a point where we took a time to be apart for a little while, and I had to go figure this out, and it was like 2020, and I went to a conference called Every Man's Battle. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. There's a book out. It's a good book. Conference is better, which I would encourage anybody to go to that who's struggling with sexual sin. I went there and I thought, man, I'm the only one. And you go there and you're like, wow, there's so many of us struggling with this. And it blew my mind. I remember getting there and there was like this 80-year-old man walking and with a name tag. And I'm like, how old are you? It's not something that goes away. Does that make sense? It's not. You could have it since you were 8 years old till you die and never overcome it. How many secret sins do we have that we sit in these pews and just never deal with? You're banking on not inheriting the kingdom. That's what you're gambling with. Man, I don't know if somebody needed to hear that, but don't gamble anymore. Like, today's your day. You don't have time. I'm a hypocrite, I know. But I also know that the Lord loves you enough to rescue you from sin. And this is not something we talk about ever. This is a vulnerable place to be. This is a scary place to be. Nobody talks about pornography or the destruction it brings. And I was going to lose my wife. So I went to E&B. And the Lord worked absolute miracles through that. It was a great program, great conference. It was a 2-day thing. It cost a lot of money up front, but they had scholarships available. And I got a scholarship. I was paid like $200. They wanted like $1,200, and I was like, oh, great, man. Lord's moving, and he did, and I got a room, and I have family down in California. They do different conferences around the state, so happened to be down in California. You got free board, and stayed at the hotel for 2 days. You can't leave, and they just kind of hit you with everything, like in the most loving way. And they have private sessions, and you're sitting there spilling your guts to people, and you're like, oh man, we all suck, and But the Lord did a work. And he really brought me out of pornography. And it was a monster on my back that I would wake up and I'm like, I'm never going to get over this. What is my time, by the way? Wow. What time is it? 12:42? How much time do I have? Why do you have to say that? Am I going long? Oh my gosh. I didn't think I'd even make an hour. This is okay. Let me wrap up. Because I have more to introduce. Oh my gosh, we're never getting out of here. Let me wrap this up. Okay, where was I? EMB was conference, changed my life. Came back. My wife was merciful. My wife's probably one of the most merciful people. At the same time, she was not okay with the sin. And it could never be done again. Now, I have relapsed. Oh my gosh, right? Here I am, the Lord saved me out of this. My wife took me back, and I've relapsed. And it's not something that I practice anymore. So praise the Lord, I do have these. It's done an incredible work. So I guess my question is to myself, maybe to somebody in here, is what voice are you listening to? Who are you spending time with? Who are you really spending time with? I have thoughts in my head like, oh, I'm just a disappointment to everybody. Oh, I'm just, fill in the blank, really. But whose voice is that? Because it's not the Lord's, right? So if you're not listening to the Lord's voice, who are you listening to? Satan, your enemy. And if you're listening to him, what is he all about? Steal, kill, and destroy. You're following the leader somewhere. But looking back on this, I've realized I've listened to this voice a lot. And it comes from just whatever it is. It could be an insecurity. Oh, I can't do that. Yes, you can. Oh, I can never defeat porn. Yes. I say you. It's the work of the Lord, right? A lot of things that we're doing, I feel like, are just footwork. We're doing the footwork. We're showing up at the conference. We're blah, blah, blah. We're great. The Lord does the work. The Lord has the power to draw the hearts, and the Lord does the work. So all glory to the Lord. But at the same time, do the footwork, right? Do the footwork. I'm wrapping up. I know it. I just know it. So, I'm going to read one thing, and then I'm going to try to introduce something. Because this is still an active testimony. This is still an active sanctification. We do a Bible drop every year. The world does this thing where they drop the ball and hey, let's party. And so I felt led on our first year of marriage that I wanted to drop the Bible, right? It's stupid. Oh, drop a Bible. I'll be clever. And so we do, and it's really fun. And it's just one of those things that the Lord meets us in every year. And this year, so we all do it individually, drop our Bibles, and then we sit there and read. And it's during the new year, and we're 12 o'clock at night, and we're all tired, and we're reading, what does the Lord have for us? And we really seek our family seeks the Lord at that time. It's a sweet time. I make 1,000 mistakes during the year, but man, I love that time. And this year was about mercy for me. Psalm 103 talks about as far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us. As a father pities his children, so the Lord pities those who fear him. For he knows our frame, and he remembers that we are but dust. If you have time, just read Psalm 103. He redeems your life from destruction. It's right here. He who forgives all your iniquities, who heals your diseases. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not his benefits. He who crowns you with loving kindness and tender mercies, who satisfies your mouth with good things so that your youth is renewed like eagles. The Lord executes righteousness and justice for all who are oppressed. He's slow to anger, abounding in mercy. He will not always strive with us, nor keep his anger forever. He has not dealt with us according to our sins. Like, praise the Lord. Because I know what I'm deserving of, and I tell myself that a lot. But the Lord said that. And I need that, right? I need that. It's hard not to hear the voice of your own sin. It's hard to not to hear the voice of your own regret. But there's freedom in Jesus, right? There's freedom in the Lord. So that's going to wrap that part up. Now, do you have a Bible? 2 more hours. Let's stay. Cool. Job 31, real quick. Let's just turn to Job 31. I want to read that together. Oh my goodness, where's Job? Yeah, I know that. All right, I'm going to read about 7 verses. You can follow if you want. It says, I've made a covenant with my eyes. Why then should I look upon a young woman? For what is the allotment of God? What is the allotment of God from above, and the inheritance of the Almighty from on high? Is it not destruction for the wicked, the disaster for the workers of iniquity? Does he not see my ways and count on my steps? If I have walked with falsehood, or if my foot is hastened to deceit, let me be weighed on the honest scales, that God may know my integrity. If my step has turned from the way, or my heart walked after my eyes, or if any spot adheres to my hands, then let me sow and another eat. Yes, my harvest may be rooted out. If my heart has been enticed by a woman, or if I have lurked at my neighbor's door, then let my wife grind for another, and let others bow down over her. For that would be wickedness. Yes, it would be iniquity deserving of judgment. You can keep going in that. About 2 years ago, this pornography thing was really on my heart. And it just wouldn't leave. And nobody seemed to be doing much about it. So I talked to the elders, and I had asked maybe if we could do something about it. And I was told, great, pray about it and find 7 people to join your club. Oh, I can't. Okay, I can't. I tried. I got a couple, maybe one. But there were a couple guys that came out, and they were asking about how to deal with this. And so for about 2 years now, almost 2 years, we've had this thing. We've had a class, and I want to offer it to you guys. And it is all about sexual integrity, mostly. And it's under Job 31. And basically the concept is you don't have the right to look at another woman's nakedness. It's pretty brutal. You don't have the right to take a second look at the jogger. You don't have the right. And it's a silent sin that men are dying from. They're not leading their families. They're not loving their wives. We're not even fellowshipping maybe in some ways that we could be as men because of the sin. And so I guess all that to say, we have a class, and it is on Thursdays at 6:30, and it's in the corner classroom. And I would invite everybody to come. Maybe you don't struggle with sexual sin. Tom has come alongside, felt the need and the call to help with this class. He doesn't necessarily struggle with that. But I would encourage you to pray about it and show up, because if we're not talking about this, we're dying. We're dying as men. We're dying in a lot of ways. You look at David and his family, maybe if he would have been able to say something because he wasn't in that sin himself, or maybe he was just so nonchalant, maybe, maybe that wouldn't have happened. But if we're not doing something, because I felt like we needed to do something and not just talk about it, let's do something together. So right now there's two things. Right now, we've been doing a bunch of studies, but we're going to be going over this unmuzzled book. So if anybody came to the retreat today, I have sexual sin, great. Even if you don't, even if you just want to be there, then please show up on Thursdays at 6:30. We've kept this very discreet. It's not necessarily for all the women and wives to drive by and be like, "Oh, look at look at Mr. So-and-so's husband is at the meet." It's not the point. The point is to come and get sexual freedom if you're struggling with it. Right now, we're just going to go different topics, but right now we're going to go through this book, Unmuzzled. Jeremy Shelton was here. We have a study guide. Please show up. Okay, that's an invitation. It's also an invitation. We have a line to call. And if you have your phones, everybody have your phones. If you just want to throw this in there, I know I'm pushing a lot of things right now, like time. We're going to eat, I promise. I know. I'm starving. 541. Ready? 541 784 8275. I call that the Job 31 phone line. And right now, I don't have a perfect definition. It's just literally for people to call that are struggling with pornography. Either probably me or Tom will call you back if we don't answer ourselves, okay? But I feel a need to put this out there for people to be a part of. So please come. Please pray about that. That is my testimony. And I was going to give a whole bunch. I had a funny video. We didn't have time. Hey, Lucas, do you have that video? You do? I did give you one. I sent it to you. Ugh. Remember the Stop It video? It's okay. We're going to run out of time. I'm going to get eaten alive up here. I know. If that video won't play. Yeah. Anybody heard of the story of Duke Raylan III? Anybody know who that is? No, I just want to eat. It was a fat Duke back in the day. And basically his brother captured him, and he took over the kingdom. And he stuck him in a cell, and he made the door small because he was a fat guy. True story. He said, "You're free to go. Just get out the door." But he also did one thing. He sent him delicacies every single day. He said, "You can have everything back. You can have the whole kingdom back as long as you can get out the door. Never get out of the door." And you know what? That's what pornography does. You're free to go. You're free not to sin. Just stop eating the food. There's no walls here. There's no prison. It's just what you put yourself in. Jesus has freed you. You got that video? Okay, this is funny to me because I feel like this is what I think about therapy. So imagine you're confessing your sins, and go ahead and play that. And then we'll end. If it'll play. Whoa. Thanks, enemy. It all depends, yeah. Sometimes that's comical. I feel like it's as simple as that. You know, I feel like maybe that's a men thing too. Maybe we're just gonna, I don't know. I got a problem. We'll stop. Oh, thanks. I'll do that. Anyways, there's my testimony. Thank you guys for listening. Sorry for keeping you so long.